Welcome to the Co-Movement Gym podcast. This week, we are talking with Joel Salatin. Joel co-owns with his family Polyface Farm in Swoope, Virginia. He was featured in the New York Times bestseller, Omnivore's Dilemma, and award-winning documentary Food Inc. The farm services more than 5,000 families, 50 restaurants, 10 retail outlets, and a farmer's market with salad bar beef, pigaerator pork, pastured poultry, and forestry products. He is the author of 15 books, and his latest book, Homestead Tsunami, is being released in January of 2024. I've had the pleasure of spending time with Joel at his farm in Virginia, touring his property, learning from him, and being a guest on his podcast. This will be the second time Joel and I chat on the Co-Movement Gym podcast. I can confidently say he is not only a trailblazer in regenerative agriculture and an optimistic visionary, but most importantly, a great human being, making a tremendous impact on the world, a human that I am proud to call my friend. I would like to thank our sponsors, Native Pass Supplements, Lombardi Chiropractic, Home Sweet Home Cleaning, and Thin Line Martial Arts. If you are enjoying this content, I ask that you support these companies in the description and take advantage of the enticing discount they're providing our listeners by using our code COMO15. That's COMO 15. I thank each and every one of you for being on this journey with us. Now, please enjoy the show. Joel, welcome back to the Co-Movement Gym podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's a delight and an honor to be with you, Josh.
Well, thanks for taking the time. You and I always enjoy speaking, and there's been some topics on my mind that you're really the only person I could think of to reach out to and have a conversation about. So I want to dive into cell phone towers, windmills, and solar farms. Where I live in upstate New York, we're surrounded by a lot of small farms, and I'm seeing more and more solar farms go in, cell towers, all of this. And I'm seeing more and more leases wrote with small farmers where the company may not even use the right with the lease or the easement, but they're locking down the rights to the land, the airspace, the underground utilities, so on and so forth. And so I just want to get your opinion on what's going on. I feel, well, I don't think we can maybe blame those corporations. And we both know that small farmers are hurting, but there seems to be something wrong with this picture when you know a farmer is struggling and you get them to sign over a 50-year lease and easement for a future wind farm that may or may not come through. What are your thoughts in regards to what's going on with that?
Yeah, about 50 years ago, actually, maybe not 50, maybe 40 years ago, gas companies actually came through the Shenandoah Valley here and wrote the same kind of easements for underground natural gas and petroleum resources, and most of the farmers signed them. They gave you a kind of an annual, very, very low kind of, this is just so we keep our foot in the door kind of thing. And in about, I don't know what, 6 years, they all went defunct. In other words, nobody ever came into the county and did anything. But they had the easement locked down way out, 20, 25 years in the future. If they ever did want to come, they had it. I think the thing that I'll just mention a couple things. One is that first of all, I'm not a fan of anything that only makes economic sense if the government pays for it. So as an umbrella kind of philosophical thing, I dislike any business arrangement that only works if the government subsidizes it, and that's what a lot of this is. We just had a solar farm owned by the Chinese go into a farm that we used to rent, it just went in there. We've been approached actually by several outfits because we own a pretty big tract of land, and it's interesting. I remember well one of these solar farm marketers came, and he told me that, well, unless we get 500 acres, none of it pays. Anything smaller than 500 acres, it's not worth doing. The very same day, I got a book in the mail. Somebody sent me a book, and it was a book about the only thing that makes sense in solar is on rooftops. So you got completely, opposing views, within the gurus of the industry. And so anyway, the fact that we're just, that we're creating inflation by printing, paper dollars and funny money to, to subsidize all this, is a shame. With that in mind, I think if I remember back to what happened here with the petroleum outfits, the biggest takeaway I had living through that as a young farmer was that nobody talked to anybody about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd have one farm that signed with company X, and their signing bonus was $2,000, and the neighbor signed with company Y, their signing bonus was $500, and it was just all over the board, and nobody was talking to anybody about it. So my first reaction is not one of, ecology or that kind of thing. It's more, man, if those companies are actively seeking these in an area, you got to get together. You got to have a town meeting. You got to get together and compare these different agreements, because you'll find a tremendous amount of variety from what one guy gets, what another guy gets. And so my point is, if I'm a farmer and I'm gonna sign off on one of these easements, I'm gonna get as much as I can. I don't want to go with the low ball figure. I want to get as much as I possibly can. Now, now I'm not prepared to speak into the space of all the EMFs, the electronics, and all that regarding this. I do know that they're real, and some people are more sensitive to them than others. We actually lease several farms, several properties in the area that are traversed by some pretty big, power lines, these big multi-strand, huge towers. We've never seen any whatever. We've never seen any result. The cows still act like cows. The chickens still act like chickens. We don't see any result of that. But I know that some of these things, there are varieties of incidents and results from all these things. As far as to be a little bit on the other side, I will tell you that years and years ago, when cell phones first came in, we actually courted, I think at the time it was AT&T, to come and put a cell tower on top of our mountain. Our thinking was, let them maintain the road. If they've got a cell tower up there, our 3 miles of road that cost us a lot of money and time to keep up, hey, they'll grade it and keep it graveled and keep it up. And so, these are not as simple things as possible that some people say. Look, if you've got a tract of land, somebody's going to put a thing on there, they're going to build a nice road to it. And if you're a farm and you want to do some controlled grazing with cows and you want a nice lane access to be able to access things, sometimes the access asset is worth more than the actual money that you get from the easement, from granting it. So, it is a complex issue. I will say this about the solar farms, and I don't want to get into a discussion about whether all of this energy is either necessary, the proper thing, or what it is. I do oppose the government subsidies. I mean, look, the government's bankrupt. They don't have any money. So so if they're giving you a subsidy, they're printing it out of thin air from somewhere. And that's making your groceries go up and your car payments go up and everything go up. All right. So just remember that. But on the solar farms, it's a little different because it is such a, I mean, at least a windmill is, kind of up out of your head, and a cell tower is kind of up, but a solar, and I've been through New Jersey. I don't know if this is the case in New York yet, but in New Jersey, there are thousands of acres now of prime farmland that are completely unusable because they're covered up with these low, like 5 foot tall solar panels. And I think that is just philosophically and ecologically atrocious, that we're taking prime farmland and making it completely unusable by these solar panels. And of course, I've talked to these guys about it. Well, can you make them high enough that we can graze cows underneath them? They've come to me about grazing sheep underneath. And a lot of times, sheep can graze underneath, but there's only so many sheep, a lot more cows. And what if you have a dairy? And so they don't want to make them high enough for cows to graze under, because the pedestal has to be so strong that it changes the cost of it a lot by making a strong, and because of got to have a taller pedestal so the cows can't rub it off. So these are difficult things. My advice, my encouragement is, get together, somebody call a town meeting, get everybody together, look at those contracts, and make sure, basically be a union, be a union and bargain as a block, and don't get picked off one by one by these sales folks.
That's great advice. Do you have a concern with, let's say it's a 25-year lease, and they were getting a stipend, a payment, and it was sustaining the taxes, the upkeep, some of the farm, and then this company moves out, and let's say now, the children own the farm, they're not farming it, but they were relying on the money from these companies to keep the farm. I'm seeing a potential for a mass turnover with land to some of these corporations and or the potential government saying, oh, the lease is up, you no longer can afford to maintain this tract of land because we're no longer paying you, but we would give you XYZ to purchase the property. This is just me forecasting and hypothesizing, but do you see an issue with that down the road, 25 to 50 years, where they become reliant on the tit essentially of those subsidies?
Yeah, I don't think those companies will ever be interested in buying the land.
Okay.
Any more than right now. We have an easement across our farm for the power company to run the power lines. They don't want to be landowners. All right. Okay. They're in the power business or cell tower business or whatever it is. They don't want to own land. So I don't see that as an issue at all. What will be interesting to see is if any of this infrastructure does get built, does it actually affect the price of the land? I mean, I can assure you that I've helped people, try to find properties in the rural area, and they don't want to be near a cell tower. They don't want to be next to a solar farm. It's ugly. It emits EMFs and all this. So my sense is that this kind of thing would depress the price of the land, not increase the price of the land. Now, of course, the easement would be transferable, with it. That being said, there are certainly plenty of farmers and ranchers in Texas and Oklahoma that have made lots and lots and lots of money over, gas, and West Virginia. I was just up in Wheeling, West Virginia, 3 weeks ago, met with a bunch of folks up there, and a lot of the sudden richest folks in the area are farmers from that have done fracking, fracking easements, fracking leases, and they're making big money. And then the problem is they don't have to be creative farmers anymore because they're making money off the gas leases, and they don't have to be good farmers anymore. I mean, that to me is the biggest downside of this, is that it creates a a non-farm income opportunity, so you don't have to actually take care of the farmland very much because you're getting money from something else. To me, that's the biggest danger.
We ran into that exact example, Joel, before we bought the farm that we own now. We had a contract on 180 acres with a farmer that was aging out. It was a great dialogue we had, and we had an agreed upon price. And then once we started to dive deeper with some, attorney background stuff, there was a windmill lease signed in like 2010 or 11, and it was a 50-year lease, and the paperwork for this was like 25 pages long. It scared the shit out of me, to the point where like they were talking about airspace control and underground utilities and all of this. And we really, really wanted this property, and it was for a good price, and it had, state land behind it, and we backed out. It scared the shit out of me. And so I think that you're absolutely right. I can see it decreasing land value, with the average person,
Yes. Yes. Which then, that has a flip side too. Your concern is that it decreases it so much that now the company can actually buy the land.
Yeah.
My counter to that argument would be it decreases it so much that a young person doesn't have much money can now afford to buy land and start farming. Yeah. So, these things kind of have, they tend to, it's hard to look that far in the future and actually predict what'll happen. It's interesting dynamics.
Yeah. Okay, great. Let's move on. I saw you and Dr. Sina McCullough talking on your podcast, Beyond Labels, which I love and highly recommend to everyone listening, about YouTube's new rules, potentially regulating homeopathic health remedies in the future. Can you just give us a brief background into what's going on with that, whether it's now or in the future?
Yeah, well, she studies this more than I do, but I can tell you this is simply a kissing cousin to the entire misinformation / censorship dynamic that we're seeing in our country. When I was a kid, there were crackpots, and everybody knew they were crackpots, and they could speak on the street corner, and people that wanted to listen to them would listen to them, and the people that didn't want to listen to them, didn't listen to them. There were, yellow journalism rags. There was, but we've entered a new era where even to hear weirdness is now supposedly whatever, damaging. And so YouTube, in their effort to suppress misinformation or disinformation, is establishing new rules for what can and can't go on YouTube. And they, as you know, there's a lot of medical stuff in this whole kind of, you can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't speak about it in this space in the medical field. It's just, the medical field is rampant now with this kind of stuff. And I mean, look how they've tried to shut down Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in his discussions about COVID, and and Dr. Fauci. And so this is just more of the same. So you got to understand that the mainstream medical narrative is homeopathy is bad.
Yep.
That's the thing you got to understand. And so as we head down this path of where you can't see, hear, or speak about unacceptable practices, this is part of that whole scenario. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting is here's what's interesting, and this is what you won't hear from. I haven't heard from anybody else, but I'm gonna put it out there that subconsciously, the fact that the government now operates our medical system,
yep,
creates an economic consideration for health decisions. when we had our own private insurance years ago, if I want to take supplements instead of surgery, or if I want to get chelation therapy instead of a heart bypass, it's no problem, because that's your decision. It's your body, your health, your body, your health, your choice kind of thing. Today, though, with the government basically owning the healthcare system, now if you make what I consider to be a bad decision, then there's an economic outcome. There's an economic outcome for you making a health decision that I think actually hurts you and adds to the burden of healthcare. I was on the metro going into Washington, D.C. several years ago, right after Obamacare came in, and it was a big hot topic. And I get on the metro, and I'm sitting there, and in the next stop, a guy gets on. He sits right across the aisle from me. He weighs about 400 pounds. He's got a pack of cigarettes in his pocket. He's carrying about a half bushel bag of Lay's potato chips. He's got about a half a gallon size of a soft drink. Okay. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, now why, somebody explain to me why I'm responsible for his health.
Yeah.
And so we got to understand that just like I had that reaction to him, okay, other people, when they hear me say, I'm going to use homeopathy, or I'm going to use supplement X, they view me the same way. That, oh, you're creating a burden on society because you're not listening to the science, right? That's the idea. And so that's what this is. This is all these social media companies who have drunk the Kool-Aid about, we need to protect people from incorrect choices, and homeopathy is in their gun sights.
Yeah, that's going to make for interesting times, because as you and I know, there's a tremendous amount of, natural methods of healing.
Sure.
And if we start blocking them via, whether it's on, the platform we're on now, or, Google searches or anything, especially with AI coming down the pipeline, and it's already here, if someone says, natural cure for digestion issues, and all they get is Pfizer, which, again, if that's a choice, right? Your body, your choice. Like, if that's what you want to use, I'm not judging that. But when the natural option is out the door, and we get 99.9% of our information from the internet, fortunately or unfortunately, that is going to create an interesting turnover with information.
Yeah, I can remember well, just to go to on another similar kind of thing. I can remember very well in the early 1980s when homeschooling was first coming in. There were massive op-eds and editorials from academic, PhDs all over the country in the newspaper. I mean, I remember because our kids were being born and we were looking at homeschooling. It was very new at that time. And I remember very well these folks saying that if we let this proliferate, if we let this aberrant behavior proliferate, we won't be able to build enough psychiatric units in hospitals to handle the miscreant, unsocialized children that are raised in these homes. And we have, homeschooling prevailed, and more people started doing it. But I can tell you, there was a time when truant officers would come to your home, take the kids away from parents, put them in foster care because you were not an acceptable parent for your kids. So think about that. If a parent decides to feed their children raw milk, or feed or use homeopathy, or any number of things, red light therapy, whatever, right? What if I get a hyperbaric chamber, instead of having knee replacement surgery? These are all, modalities that have, acupuncture that have tremendous benefits, but they don't fit the narrative. And so I'm glad you brought up artificial intelligence, because that enables the system, if you will, to make decisions that are even that can amalgamate. So suddenly my name gets associated with, this guy is searching homeopathy. Oh, he's a liability, and then you get social score, right? And that you head down that whole that whole thing. So this whole thing of we've got to silence the lunatic fringe. Look, if you look at any business book, all innovation happens in the lunatic fringe. That's where all the innovation happens. And so if we silence the lunatic fringe as a culture, we are eliminating our choices and our ability to intersect with innovation.
I think we might see it come down to almost a reversal with where we're going to get future information from. And I think it might be from books.
Hey, I like that. I'm a book guy. I think that's great. And paper magazines.
Yes. Yes. So like, let's take Sally Fallon's Nourishing Traditions. Like, that's like the Bible, right, of food recommendations, at least in my opinion. And so it may reverse back to us just going to the library and doing some good reading and research on our own if the internet goes too far one way, which I think we're already pretty close to that. So that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but people are going to have to like reading.
Yeah. So cash in your 401k and stock your house with books. That's probably a better retirement plan than stocks and bonds. She has now passed 1 million copies of that book. So
wow,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Well, Joel, we have a few more minutes. Can you tell people about your new book release, Homestead Tsunami?
Yeah, so this has been out now only about 3 weeks, Josh. Homestead Tsunami, good for country, critters, and kids. And it's a dive into what is driving this entire this homestead movement. It is a tsunami. There are homestead festivals springing up all over the country, east to west, north to south. And thousands of there's a mass migration. I was just in Tennessee over the weekend at a Self-Reliance Festival. Half the people there had fled California. They're fleeing, Michigan, New York, California, high tax blue states, and heading to conservative red states. And this is not a partisan thing. It's just the fact is people are looking at how things are going and realizing, I want to disentangle. That's one of the most common phrases I hear. How do I disentangle? How do I reduce my dependence on Cargill, on Tyson, on Walmart? How do I disentangle from the system? And so there is a massive homestead tsunami going on. And so this book is an explanation of the why. 2 years ago, I wrote Polyface Micro, which is a how to have livestock on a very small scale. This, I realized later that a lot of people need a why. So I wrote the book to three kinds of people. The first are the people that are wondering, should I make the jump? Should I actually, leave my city place and maybe get a couple, 3 acres in the country? That's the first group. The second group are all of their friends and family who think they're nuts for leaving a place where Papa John's pizza delivery doesn't go. and the third group of people are the ones who have made the jump, maybe in the last year, 2, 3, and all of these fantasies and dreams and castles in the sky. Oh my goodness. The neighbor's dog, just killed 5 chickens. the cucumbers have powdery mildew, and the cow has mastitis. And, boy, this isn't what I signed up for. And they need to rediscover their first love and what romanced them into the why in the first place. It looks at a lot of issues in life in a depth from a perspective that maybe haven't thought. I mean, for example, one of them, one of my favorites is a chapter about I think the title is I Like Me. I Like Me. And it's about youth self-worth. Josh, we have a youth crisis in our country right now. Suicide is up, fentanyl, all sorts of, mental drugs, anorexic bulimia among girls, bullying among boys, all of this, school shootings, which are all boys, by the way. All of this stuff stems from a basic lack of feeling needed, feeling affirmed, feeling like I'm valuable, I'm worthwhile. How do you develop self-worth? How do you develop a sense that I'm valuable? You develop it by successfully accomplishing meaningful tasks. You don't get there by mom and dad patting you on the head, saying you're a good boy, you're a good girl. A good girl for what? A good boy for what? And kids are smart enough to know if they say I'm good for what? I'm good about what? They connect intuitively, connect a need for need, for their needfulness and their value. And so the beauty of a homestead is with chores, canning, gardening, all the things that are necessary, gathering eggs, feeding the pigs, all of those chores and those tasks create opportunity for very little children. I mean, little children in diapers who can fill a needed niche in the family and actually develop a sense of self-worth. And I'm important because I'm making a contribution to the family, to society, and to our living. And I think that we are in a cultural crisis with our young people, basically telling them all you have to do is sit in the basement and play video games. And then we wonder why at 18 they failed to launch. Well, they failed to launch because they never built a rocket. If you want somebody to launch at 18, you better have them building a rocket at 5 and 6. Okay. How do you build a rocket? It's in accomplishing meaningful tasks.
That is great, Joel. Let's finish up this part one. One last message. I ask that you please check out our show sponsors, Lombardi Chiropractic, Home Sweet Home Cleaning, Native Pass Supplements, and Thin Line Martial Arts. Their links are in the description. Not only do these companies produce outstanding products and services, but they're providing an enticing discount to all listeners who use code COMO15. That's COMO15 at checkout or when you give them a call.